answer lies in the heart of battle.
King of Iron Fist Tournament.
Mugen TV versus Corner.
Welcome to the stage of history retold.
Hey guys, it's MugenLord here, and I'm back again with another video. And today I want to talk about Street Fighter V, because last night I finally had a chance, made some time to actually play Street Fighter V last night, and I finally got a chance to update it on Steam and to try out my favorite character, Rose. And I main Rose ever since Street Fighter Alpha. Been one of my favorite Street Fighter characters of all time within the franchise. Well, besides that, after actually getting a chance to play the character, I'm really enjoying what the character has. The character has a lot of tools to work with, and I'm definitely going to try to lab the character once more and try to figure out how the character works. And this is something quite different. I never really sat down and labbed much in most Street Fighter games, but I'm definitely going to try it with my favorite character, Rose. Now, why do I bring this character up? Well, last night I went to play the story mode, and something interesting happened at the very end of her story. And not just that, this topic had also appeared on event hubs, Street Fighter V Facebook group, and a couple of content creators also talked about it as well. So I figured that, you know, why not talk about it on my YouTube channel as well, because I find it quite interesting. So what's up with Rose? What happened in her story mode? Well, after you play through her story mode and after you beat G, you discovered that Rose she looks into the future and realizes that this big tragic event is still going to happen for Earth, and I guess you could say for the Street Fighter universe. It's still going to have somewhat of a tragic ending. So even though Shadaloo Bison was defeated, it still seems like the world is still going to meet its end in some way. So she's terrified of this. So she decided that she has to figure out what can she do to prevent this from happening. So she essentially came up with this idea: if she can go back to her past self with the knowledge that she has now, to be able to warn her of the events that's supposed to happen. And maybe if she tells her past self, she can stop these events. So the thing that caught everybody's attention was the fact is that she said, I must go back to zero. Now, if you guys don't know, in America, we call the Street Fighter Alpha series Street Fighter Alpha, but in Japan it's called Street Fighter Zero. So essentially, she's pretty much saying that she has to go back into that timeline in order to prevent certain events that happen. Now, the thing is, what I find really interesting is because if you guys don't know, during the last, I guess you could say, season or whatever of Street Fighter 4, Ono, you know how he used to do his little Blanca, you know, figure, and he always leave like Easter eggs or hints about what he's working on. Well, during the time of Mortal Kombat 9, he had a screenshot of him in the office in the Blanca toy next to the Mortal Kombat 9 the box art next to the box. And he's pretty much essentially saying in the tweet that Mortal Kombat 9 story mode had pretty much inspired him. You know, maybe he can somewhat implement something like that in Street Fighter in the future. So I was already saying to myself, maybe Street Fighter 5 is going to have some story mode, just like how Mortal Kombat 9 has an epic story mode. So we end up getting Street Fighter 5 story mode, which a lot of people didn't really care too much for. And I thought that maybe this was the thing that Ono was talking about. But now that we're here on the final season and we have Rose, now it kind of like makes sense now, for the fact is maybe it was never for Street Fighter 5, but maybe for Street Fighter 6 or whatever Street Fighter game that they're working on right now, because best believe they are working on the next Street Fighter entry. So if you play Mortal Kombat 9, essentially Raiden goes back to warn his past self to try to prevent certain events from happening, and things kind of get screwed up or whatever like that along the way, and then certain different chain of events happen. So now it seemed like whatever Ono had planned, it seemed like it may be coming into effect moving forward into the next Street Fighter game. Because if this happens, you can see the possibilities that they can do with the Street Fighter franchise. Because if the next Street Fighter Rose goes back into the past, then you must understand that characters that may have died or characters that we have not seen in the very first Street Fighter games, Capcom can essentially go back and pull those characters back out of their library, out of their archives, and put them back into their franchise to expand their roster, which is, I find, quite interesting as well. Similar to what SNK did with King of Fighters 14 with their story event, bringing a lot of characters back from the dead. So now you look at King of Fighters 15, you see that now you have a lot of returning characters back in the fold. So I think that this is what they're doing. Now, what I find kind of funny is that Capcom is really fighting hard not to go past Street Fighter's Third Strike's story. It's like Street Fighter Third Strike is like that bump. That bump in the wall that just got in the way, and it seemed like that Capcom can't plan anything as far as story and lore wise after Street Fighter Third Strike. And you know the history of Street Fighter Third Strike, a lot of people at the beginning didn't like the changes in when they removed a lot of the legacy characters, and people just didn't like the overall story aspect of Street Fighter Third Strike at the beginning before it became famous for what it is now. But yeah, so them going back into the past, I just think that'd be quite interesting. Now, if this does happen, will Capcom call it like Street Fighter Alpha again, or Street Fighter Zero, or will it be Street Fighter 6? Now, the thing is, they can go in so many different directions, because as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the Street Fighter lore and the story, especially when it comes to fighting games in general, their stories, fighting game stories is like porn, like porn, and having storylines in porn. Like the story is just there. Story is there just to have an excuse for these people to get together to do their thing. And the same thing with fighting games, especially back in the day. The storyline is just there, just to be there to get these characters to fight. And for me, Street Fighter was another convoluted story that was all over the place, especially in the past and everything like that. So essentially, would this be a way for them to create a more cohesive story? They could be able to correct a lot of things, create a whole new timeline, and not only that, they will be able to add not only like older characters that we haven't seen in years, but it's another way to introduce even newer characters as well. Now, if they do go in the past as well, that means some characters probably wouldn't make it into the roster, especially if you're talking about like, Sakura is in it, so that means we would still have rival school characters. But characters like Eagle, we'll be able to see again. Joe and a couple other characters. I think it'll be pretty interesting. Of course, we'll probably see some more Final Fight characters. I think this would be a way for Capcom to take all the I guess you could say Capcom fighting games that's in the same universe as Street Fighter. I think this is a perfect way to blend all of them together if they happen to go this route. I think that'll be perfect. And then now they have an excuse to expand their Street Fighter roster and to bring more players in, especially start throwing in some more rival school characters to get people ready and prepped up just in case they do another rival schools game. Throwing some more Final Fight characters, or Saturday Night Slam Master characters in the game. I think that there's so much potential that they can possibly do by going back into the past for Street Fighter. So I'm hoping to see if they do go this direction, and Rose having this knowledge of what's happening in the future and she goes back into the past. I'm excited to see the potential and the possibilities of other events, changing because of the knowledge that she has. So she's going to somehow screw this up somehow. And also too, like Charlie Nash, like maybe he may not die this time, like it's so many avenues they can go with this character. Maybe Charlie becomes something totally different. Hell, maybe Bison becomes something totally different. Maybe something different happens between Goken and Akuma. Something may totally different happen with those characters. Maybe something happened differently with Ryu. Like, it's the potentials, the possibilities can be completely different moving forward. Maybe Chun-Li's father doesn't die. Maybe Chun-Li's father becomes a playable character in Street Fighter 6. I think that'd be pretty interesting. But, I mean, that's pretty much my overall thoughts about this. I think it's quite interesting because everybody's talking about this, and this really had me thinking about the possibilities and the potential that they have going with this in the future of Street Fighter, I think this would be a good idea to go back and do a hard reset and to give everybody what they love, which is the legacy characters, while blending in and bringing in characters from rival schools in Final Fight, maybe Saturday Night Slam Masters, and also take the characters in a whole nother direction, because now that Rose knows these events, you know, things can change, and things should change, especially if we talk about time travel, and see how some of these characters end up becoming much different. So I think this is a bold step if they happen to go this route with Street Fighter 6 or whatever they call the next Street Fighter title. But I definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about this? About Rose potentially maybe going back in time to the Street Fighter 0 or Street Fighter Alpha events to change certain events from happening? What do you think about that? Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think this is a good way for Capcom to reset, since they seem like they don't want it to go past Street Fighter Third Strike? And what characters would you love to see return in a potential Street Fighter 6 or whatever the title may be in the near future? So if you like the video, make sure you press the subscribe button, and if you're on the Odyssey platform, make sure you hit the follow button, and also don't forget to hit the notification bell to be notified for more fighting game related content. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you game fiends later. Peace out.